While Joey was confronting a bear, his father Stan dreamed of striking it rich in Alaska. Besides gold panning, there was another way. The 64-year-old hunter Stan was using an automatic fish trap to catch chum salmon for his dogs. Just then, a plane flown by his old friend Mike appeared. Stan recognized it as the plane he had helped recover from the wilderness. Their reunion led to a friendly wrestling match, which Mike, who had a pacemaker, conceded. Mike came to propose a lucrative business venture. They flew deep into the jungle to an abandoned mine shaft over 120 meters deep, now collapsed at the entrance. Mike had learned it contained silver ore and saw a chance for profit. But the low value of silver meant they needed heavy machinery for profitable extraction, which they couldn't afford. However, Mike had planned ahead with a 1942 bulldozer that, if repaired, could excavate the silver. For Stan, the risk was high. Failure could jeopardize his family's well-being. He hesitated, but considered the proposition as his fish trap, now due to be harvested, was empty. Eventually, Stan decided to join Mike, hoping to fix the bulldozer and potentially earn a season's income in a day. After assessing the bulldozer, Stan believed it could be repaired and agreed to Mike's invitation, dreaming of sudden wealth. They started excavating, but Mike was injured by falling rocks, indicating potential collapses. They needed to find another entrance. Exploration and maps suggested a vertical shaft at the mountaintop. To access it, they planned to use explosives to blast open the entrance. Stan made explosives using fuel and an oxidizer, packing them into plastic tubes. He then found a suspected cave entrance on the mountain and placed the explosives inside. From a distance, he detonated the explosives with a bullet. Although the explosion was loud, its power was limited and the entrance was not opened. However, they retrieved some very dense stones, confirming they were in the right place. The only option left was to bring over the bulldozer. Stan, skilled in repairs, managed to start the machine using some old spare parts. But soon after, the engine casing burst, and the bulldozer was completely wrecked. Their dreams of quick riches were shattered. Stan felt unwell, having spent too much time on this venture, neglecting to prepare his family's winter supplies. It's hard to imagine how he'll get through this winter. Meanwhile, Stan's son Joey was hunting with Charlie a rare game in Tanana, Alaska. The most challenging game there is not the fierce wolf or bear, but a very gentle animal called Dall sheep. They live in remote, uninhabited areas atop steep mountains. Just spotting them is difficult, let alone hunting them. Today, the town's top hunter, Charlie and Joey, are set to take on what's considered the world's most strenuous hunt. The target location is over 200 kilometers from Tanana, an undeveloped wilderness accessible only by small bush plains. The area, untouched by humans, is rich in wildlife. From the plain, they already spotted herds of Dall sheep. Charlie, 47, has always dreamed of hunting Dall sheep. Now, with talented young Joey accompanying him, he was determined to take on this personal challenge. At 9 in the morning, their plane landed on a riverbank. They had 3 days to complete their hunt, targeting Lime Peak. They needed to climb to the summit for the hunt and descend the other side to reach a pre-arranged extraction point to get home. The dense vegetation and lack of roads in the primeval forest made even carrying heavy gear through the woods exhausting. When they checked their position, they realized a critical issue. The sheep they had seen from the plane were actually very far away, requiring them to trek an additional 20 kilometers. It might not sound far, but remember, this is a roadless wilderness. Over the past year, more than 3,000 people have gone missing in Alaska's wilderness. And even as top hunters, they still faced the risk of getting lost in the forest. 9 hours later, they had barely advanced 11 kilometers. At this rate, not to mention hunting, reaching the evacuation point in 3 days would be extremely challenging. What was meant to be a hunting trip had turned into a struggle for survival. 10 hours later, they decided to find a campsite. But as misfortune would have it, they discovered huge bear tracks nearby. For safety, the hunters loaded their guns, ready to confront any bear that might appear. By the time they emerged from the forest, it was 8 p.m. The open flatland with a creek made an excellent campsite. Due to the presence of many bears nearby, they needed to keep a fire burning all night and could not sleep soundly. Charlie, at 47 years old and somewhat overweight, found it difficult to keep up with the younger Joey. This hunt was turning out to be one of the toughest of his life. The next day, after a night without conversation, they changed their plan due to the difficulty of navigating the forest. They decided to walk along the river. However, 8 hours later, they faced another dilemma. To reach the hunting spot on time the next day, they had to return to the forest. Joey went ahead to scout the route while Charlie stayed behind to look for food. As an experienced hunter, Charlie always carried fishing line and hooks. Using a branch as a fishing rod, he quickly caught a thamalis from the creek, solving their immediate food problem. When Joey returned, he reported that the forest was as difficult to traverse as ever, and the increasing wind on the mountain was a sign of changing weather. 3 hours later, Joey returned to camp and shared the troubling details with Charlie. They needed to reach the evacuation point by 4 p.m. the next day, but the 13 kilometers ahead covered by dense forest and the worsening weather added uncertainty to their journey. That evening, the two hunters took some time to chat and replenish their protein reserves for the challenging day ahead. This night is destined to be sleepless. Both hunters are preoccupied with their thoughts. By 6 a.m. the next morning, they have 10 hours left until they must evacuate. The storm is already upon them, and they must hurry. By noon, they have trekked 35 kilometers, with only 5 kilometers left. Lime Peak, shrouded in mist, is close by, but their evacuation site is in another direction. This causes both hunters great distress. They could have achieved their hunting goal, but time and distance forced them to abandon it. However, they realize that returning home alive to reunite with their families is what matters most. They push on, disappointed but determined. By 3:45 p.m., they arrive at the evacuation site 15 minutes early. However, uncertainty remains due to the bad weather, and they are unsure if the plane will arrive on time. If they cannot leave today, they might have to stay another week. They prepare for the worst. At 4:30 p.m., the delayed plane finally appears. Although their hunting was unsuccessful, surviving in the world's roughest terrain and trekking 40 kilometers is a significant achievement. Stan's plans to mine with his friend are dashed. He must quickly return to the wilderness to prepare for winter. Summer has passed, and winter is approaching fast. This is his last chance to stock up on food. Recently, a large school of chum salmon is moving towards Tanana. The surge is expected to last only 24 hours. The townspeople plan to catch as much as they can. 48 kilometers upstream, Stan has set up a fishing water wheel. So far, his smokehouse is empty. If he cannot catch enough chum salmon, his dogs will not survive the winter. Stan's fishing camp is downstream. It's uncertain how many salmon can make it through the barriers to him. Seeing the water tank full of chum salmon, he finally breathes a sigh of relief. Most of these fish will feed his dogs, and the fattier ones will feed his family. Since the ban on king salmon, the diet of the people in Tanana has changed. The chum salmon, previously only for dogs, is now consumed by people as well. The abundant catch is a good start, but to get through winter safely, Stan needs to catch at least 1,200 more fish. While fishing, he must also consider two urgent issues: transporting the catch back to Tanana and securing firewood for the winter. Both tasks require dry wood, so he can tackle them simultaneously. Today, he is lucky. Soon after leaving home, he finds a dead tree over 10 meters tall, perfect for making a fish raft. Once the fish are transported home, the wood can be used for firewood, lasting him a third of the winter. Despite being 64, old Stan is still quite agile, thanks to his lifelong physical labor. While picking up wood, he also needs to run back and forth to the fishing water wheel. This year's catch is truly abundant, with dozens of fish caught each time. When the fish surge ends, Stan starts building a fish raft to transport the fish home to feed his dogs during winter. Building the raft is straightforward, requiring 11 logs over 10 meters long. It features a 9 square meter hollow area for storing fish, initially lined with sturdy mesh, then covered with a tarp. This setup relies on water buoyancy to support the weight of the fish, which explains why transporting 5 tons of fish is easier than moving a 2-ton truck. The tarp is filled with river water. Currently, in the Yukon area, the air temperature is around 10 degrees Celsius, while the water is barely 2 degrees. These temperatures help slow down the decomposition of the fish. Stan needs to travel 48 kilometers back to Tanana. The journey includes dangerous rapids and surges. Any accident could devastate his family's and dog's food supply. Eventually, Stan catches only 800 fish, far short of his goal. The shortfall will have to be made up by hunting, but that's a story for another time. The most important task now is to safely transport these fish back home. The operation, though practiced for many years, faces the unpredictable challenges of the Yukon River, which never misses a chance to assert its power. Winter, like an invisible hand, pushes the people of Tanana rapidly from one phase to another. The thickening fog signals the imminent arrival of winter, forcing Stan to hasten his pace to deliver the precious catch to Tanana. The journey is smooth until 6 kilometers from Tanana, a sudden wind puts a lot of pressure on the sinking fishing nets. The nails holding them might break due to the strain. Soon, one corner of the net detaches from the wood due to large waves. Stan quickly fixes it with long nails, but some fish still escape. Upon finally reaching Tanana, he estimates a loss of nearly a quarter of the catch. Stan has no time for sorrow, facing many problems. The food for people and dogs is insufficient, and much more firewood is needed. These necessities must be gathered from the wilderness. This is real life. You need to feed yourself and your family. Despite the daily stresses, life's essence is to be born, to survive, and to remain hopeful for everything possible. The recent surge of fish in the Yukon River brought Stan a rich harvest. However, hunter Charlie found it bittersweet. A new group of chum salmon had arrived in the river, and Charlie seized the opportunity to stock up on winter food. Within an hour, he caught over 50 fish using his automatic fishing device. He ate the fatter ones and fed the leaner ones to his dogs, delighted with his plentiful catch. Yet something continued to bother him. Recently, the trapping line he had used for 12 years was reclaimed by the original owner's son. The trapping lines in Tanana are traditionally inherited, so his claim was not unjustified. However, losing it was a significant blow to Charlie's main source of income, making the upcoming winter difficult. As a result, he planned to clear new trapping lines in his hometown of Rampart. This work would have to wait until after the fish surge. Unbeknownst to him, someone was plotting to destroy his fishing water wheel. James, the town's craftiest lumber merchant, surprisingly ignored the fishing opportunity. A man of high intelligence, he planned to gather extra wood to sell at high prices in the winter, exchanging it for fish. In winter, wood is more precious than gold, as it keeps you alive. He spent the entire morning cutting dead trees on his land. Now, he needed to transport 3 tons of wood to his house. At a turn, he saw a recently set fishing water wheel. He had to change direction to avoid it. But as he turned, his engine made a strange noise and stopped, unable to restart. A rope had become entangled in the propeller, damaging the engine. The 3-ton load of wood, carried by momentum, headed straight for the fishing water wheel. A collision would ruin the water wheel, destroying someone else's last chance to store food for winter. Knowing the stakes, James frantically paddled to divert the wood, but to no avail. In a last-ditch effort, he cut the boat free from the wood, hoping to save what he could. Despite his efforts, the collision was inevitable, and the water wheel was destroyed. The water wheel's owner was Charlie. He lost his trapping routes this year, and now his fishing water wheel was gone too. At that moment, Charlie and his son Bob were happily coming to collect fish when they saw the scene. Charlie was so angry he nearly fainted. If it weren't for his friendship with James, they might have fought over this. James, like a child scolded for a mistake, didn't dare to breathe. He apologized profusely, trying to make amends. But in a place where food is so precious, he had to find a way to compensate Charlie. This year had the best fish catch in years, a much-needed boon for the other townspeople. Seeing the abundant chum salmon calmed their hearts, except for Charlie and James. One lost a great fishing opportunity, and the other needed to use his wood to compensate for the loss. With the water wheel destroyed, Charlie's need to establish new trapping lines far away became urgent. He found a deserted area in his hometown of Rampart. This winter, he planned to trap animals there to earn money from their fur. Now, he needed to build a hunting cabin near the riverbank to stay over the winter. He had to work hard to recover from the fishing losses. Building the cabin required chopping many large trees, then dragging them back to camp via water. The new location brought new opportunities, filling him with anticipation. Logs with a 30 centimeter diameter were ideal for insulation and would be the main material for the cabin. Just then, Charlie heard a bear's low growl. He quickly ran to get his gun. Living in the same area as bears was very dangerous. Without intervention, the bear would likely return frequently, worsening the situation like a domino effect. This area held Charlie's hopes for the future, so he couldn't back down. Dark clouds gathered and thunder rumbled, signaling an approaching storm. The noise in nature could affect the keen hearing of animals, providing a good hunting opportunity for Charlie. From the lake to the forest, he found black bear tracks, and soon after, a bear den nearby. It was autumn, and the bears were preparing for hibernation. To eliminate a potential threat, Charlie made a bold move. He decided to check a cave for bears by peeking inside. Just as he put his head in, he heard a bear's low growl. Luckily, the sound came from outside. He quickly grabbed his gun and chased after it. A healthy, large black bear was standing not far ahead, just staring at Charlie. All he had to do was move his finger, and the bear would be gone. However, after thinking it over, he didn't shoot, but instead shouted loudly to scare the bear away. Charlie believed that the abundance of bears in the area was a good sign. He saw it as a blessing, thinking of the bears as walking fresh meat when he needed food. If managed properly, this could become his most reliable food source in the coming years. Bear skins could also be sold for a good profit. Of course, he needed to be extremely cautious when hunting. One slap from a black bear could be fatal. When two wolf packs invaded the town of Tanana, the town's top hunters were on it. Charlie and Bob, responsible for the western pack, decided to split up to work more efficiently. While in a low bush, Charlie noticed crows circling overhead. As expected, they were hovering over another large moose. He knew the wolves would come back for the leftover meat, presenting a perfect opportunity to trap them. He set traps in the area, hoping to catch the wolves when they came to protect their food. Using the wolves' protective instincts to his advantage, he planned to lure them out with howls and then pick them off one by one. With no wind, the scent moved slowly, allowing him to get closer to the wolves for an easier kill. As soon as he howled, there was an immediate response from the wolves. All he had to do now was wait quietly for them to approach. The sounds of the wolves grew closer, and Charlie was ready to take them down. Unfortunately, just then, the wind picked up, and Charlie was upwind. The wolves might have smelled him, so they were heard but not seen. However, they were probably still nearby. Charlie decided to pursue them. On his way, he met up with his son, and they continued the chase together. Soon, they found their target. Bob fired first, but missed his chance to draw first blood. As night fell, and with wolves having the advantage in the dark, Charlie and his son could no longer continue the chase and had to return home. They pinned all their hopes on the traps they had set. Time flies, and weeks have passed quickly. The ongoing struggle between hunters and wolves has yielded no benefits to either side. Today, Charlie is off to check the wolf traps again. He arrives at the site where the moose carcass lay and finds that the trap has been triggered, but there is no catch. Clearly, these are very clever wolves. Therefore, Charlie decides to change his strategy. He takes a brand new wolf trap and places it right next to the moose carcass, camouflaging it with deer hair. Another day passes, and Charlie returns to check the traps. This time, before he even reaches the moose carcass, he hears something unusual. Sure enough, The new trap set yesterday has caught 2 wolves. He shoots them dead before daring to approach and inspect the trap. If not for the pressing need to secure his own living space, Charlie would have been reluctant to harm the wolves. After all, like hunters, wolves are also struggling to survive. Now, with limited wildlife resources, both types of hunters are competing for the same means of survival, leading to a life-or-death struggle. Facing a large pack of wolves, killing just 2 subordinates is not enough to intimidate them. Charlie knows that the leader of this wolf pack, a massive black wolf, must be captured to truly alleviate the crisis. Do wolves really seek revenge? Last winter, a super pack invaded Tanana, and the hunters united to fight back. Eventually, the young hunter Joey captured the wolf leader with a trap, forcing the pack back to their original territory. Now, deep into winter, a wolf pack has returned near Tanana. Whether it's for revenge or competing for food is unknown. But one thing is certain: for their own survival, humans and wolves are poised to clash again. It's now December, with only 4 hours of daylight, forcing much of the work to be done at night. In the pitch dark and freezing wind, people struggle to survive in temperatures as low as 36 degrees Celsius. The young hunter Joey is collecting water from the Yukon River. While we simply turn on a tap to access water, they must chisel a very deep hole in the ice to obtain clean river water. Since reaching adulthood, Joey has begun giving back to his parents. The first load of water he collects goes to his mother's house. Staying closely united with family is key to surviving in such conditions. Besides Joey, Charlie is also out working in the dangerous night. Deep in the Alaskan wilderness, having lost his original trapping routes, he is busy pioneering new hunting trails. The darkness does not stop their quest for survival. To stay alive, they must continually search for food and ways to earn money. Every trapping season is the best time to earn cash. This year, he will set traps here to catch animals and then exchange their pelts for money. Pioneering is tough, especially in unfamiliar territories, which often bring unpredictable dangers. Charlie must be extra cautious. He usually carries 2 guns, a long one on his motorcycle and a short one on his person. His headlamp not only illuminates his path, but also exposes him in the wilderness. While focused on his work, he suddenly hears a wolf howl. It's the time when gray wolves are most active. They are bloodthirsty and move in packs. Charlie immediately becomes alert as the sound is very close. He deduces that the wolves must be hunting nearby. Armed, he quickly follows the sound and soon finds a moose carcass. The wolves had just been feeding here, leaving behind a skeleton so picked clean it could bring tears to a fly's eyes. The elders in town have always taught hunters to respect all life in nature, especially the smart and brave wolves. In a way, hunters and wolves perform the same job. They hunt to survive. But seeing the moose on the ground, Charlie is somewhat angered. A single moose could sustain a family in town through the winter. In recent years, as the number of gray wolves has increased, their prey has diminished. With not enough food in the deep wilderness, they now encroach on the hunters' territories around the towns. When interests clash, humans and wolves must abide by the law of the jungle. Survival of the fittest. Charlie resolves to reduce their numbers, ideally by taking out the Wolf King again. A battle for food between man and wolf thus begins. Meanwhile, in Tanana, the Moore family, major dog breeders, are training their sled dogs under the cover of night. It's the best time to train the dogs to follow commands. They use G for right turns and Ha for left turns, guiding the dogs with the beams from their headlamps. The Moore's training route extends deep into the wilderness, fraught with dangers. Just as Courtney finishes the route and heads home, the dogs suddenly stop, spooked by some creature. With bears hibernating, only wolves could scare them this much. To confirm, Courtney steps into the nearby bushes and finds wolf tracks everywhere. With a pack nearby, the safety of the sled dogs is at risk. She must hurry home, as the wolves are just over a kilometer away from the Moore's house. If they come over and attack the tethered sled dogs, it would be a deadly blow to their family. Moreover, this is not alarmist talk. In Alaska, wolves attacking dogs are common occurrences. To protect these dogs, the Moore family will guard them throughout the night. After more than 20 hours of darkness, the sun finally shines, and Tanana town becomes busy again. During the precious daylight, Charlie and his son rush home. They need to collect supplies and gear in town to confront the invading wolves. This year, the temperature is higher than usual, causing large areas of the Yukon River to remain unfrozen. For their own safety, they can only travel during the day. Just before reaching Tanana, the father and son find fresh clues. Numerous wolf tracks gathered together, and urine marking their territory on the tree stumps. This suggests two separate wolf packs, indicating a struggle for territory and a break in the delicate balance previously maintained. The number of wolves has spiraled out of control, potentially preventing hunters from sustaining their traditional livelihoods. No individual can fight a pack of wolves alone. The next morning, the town's top hunters gather for a meeting. For the first time after living in the wilderness for many years, they face two wolf packs simultaneously. If left unchecked, Tanana could be in danger. In a few years, the hunters' children may find no food and traditional culture could vanish. Wolves have their vulnerabilities. They do not show mercy. If a few, especially the wolf kings, could be eliminated, the rest would likely stay away. After discussing, they decide to divide into two teams to set traps on the west and north sides of town. They plan to establish a long defensive line to block the wolves from entering residential areas. During the limited 4 hours of daylight, they aim to finish setting up defenses. By 10:50 a.m., as the sun rises, the hunters begin their tense work. Charlie and his son, along with Stan and his son, collect most of the town's wolf traps and boil them to remove scents. Stan and Joey head into the wilderness first, responsible for the north side. With little time and a heavy task, they must ensure all traps and snares are set. Before dark, the father and son duo finally finish laying the traps. This time, facing two wolf packs, it is uncertain if Joey can achieve as good a result as last year. In the Alaskan wilderness, the shadow of a wolf disaster looms over the entire town of Tanana. The town's top hunters are confronting two wolf packs. Charlie has caught two wolves with traps, achieving a partial victory. But his target is not these underlings. Only by capturing the alpha wolf can he cause the packs to collapse, forcing them to stay away from the town. Charlie knows that the alpha wolf of the Ticino River pack is a black wolf. To capture a thief, capture the leader first. This black wolf must be eliminated. Since his companions were caught, the pack has adapted. They no longer follow just one path to the moose carcass, but have opened many new paths to confuse the hunters. However, Charlie has his own methods. He lays out all his traps to cover every path. His hunting skills, mostly learned from his stepfather, are based on the principle that to be a good hunter, one must understand the animal's thoughts and think like them. Know your enemy and yourself, and you will never be defeated. He has set up a dense network of lassos and wolf traps. Any wolf that dares to return for the moose will surely be caught. Just as he confidently prepares to leave, he discovers something terrifying. New wolf tracks on the path he walked. It means that a wolf, likely the alpha black wolf, was present while he was setting the traps. This is the first time he has encountered such a clever opponent. As night falls, the night belongs to the wolves. Charlie wisely chooses to retreat, hoping that his traps will lure the prey into a deadly trap. Back home, Charlie must quickly deal with the two wolves he caught. Despite the freezing conditions, bacteria in the wolves' stomachs could quickly spoil the meat, turning the stomachs green and damaging the fur on their bellies. Recently, the wolves killed another moose nearby, howling around after feasting, as if to declare their dominance over this area. Such unchecked hunting could disrupt the local ecological balance. Charlie resolves to catch that commanding black alpha wolf, leaving the wolf pack leaderless and forcing them to leave. In the deep silence of the night, the howling of wolves all around clearly indicates how close the packs are to the town. When the sun rose again, Charlie returned to the Ticino River to check the extensive trap network he had set the day before. Observing the wolf tracks on the ground, Charlie adjusted the traps according to their direction. He even considered using himself as bait to lure out the alpha wolf. At that moment, he noticed movement in a trap on the main path. It was the black wolf, the leader of the pack and a prominent figure akin to the town's leader. Ordinary wolves struggle and howl hysterically when caught, but the highest leader of the pack remained composed even in capture. Its pride was immense. Even in death, it would die with dignity, embodying a warrior spirit which moved the hunter. Opportunities to look a wolf in the eyes are rare, and in its gaze, Charlie saw an inner struggle and pain that mirrored his own life's challenges. To survive on this land meant enduring hardships others could not bear. The inevitable had arrived. Despite a mutual respect for valor, the alpha could not live if the wolf pack was to be repelled. Charlie had to abide by the laws of the jungle and slowly raised his gun. The alpha wolf had lost, but in a manner befitting its royal status, facing the hunter and death without tarnishing its regal honor. This deeply saddened Charlie. He did not wish to kill wolves, but had no choice if the townspeople were to survive. Carrying 3 large gray wolves, he returned to Tanana within 24 hours, catching 3 wolves and astonishing the entire town. However, Charlie did not go straight home, but visited the home of the late hunter George, who had died accidentally while hunting geese. To honor his memory, George's mother was hosting a feast where gathered food and furs would be offered as tributes. The valuable wolf pelts would be used to express the highest respect for George. Bob, hearing of his father's victorious wolf hunt, hurried over to congratulate him. Thus, the wolf crisis in Tanana was resolved. Yet, there was one more thing Charlie had to do. Following local tradition to show respect for the wolves, their bodies would be returned to the Yukon River for reincarnation. As long as Tanana allowed hunting, the traditions passed down from the older generations would continue. The wolf pack that Stan and Joey were dealing with proved to be quite clever. Since setting the traps, the wolves have not returned, leaving the father and son empty-handed. Now, the wolf crisis has been completely resolved. Young hunters Joey and Bob are planning to hunt a North American reindeer deep in the mountains for their family. Joey, the young hunter, learned of a rare occurrence. North American reindeer had come to Mount Bard during this season. He prepared to hunt one to feed his family. However, he had never climbed the mountain in winter before. When strong winds blow on the mountain, temperatures can suddenly drop to minus 45 degrees Celsius. Unprepared, one could freeze to death. To be safe, he planned to bring extra survival gear and supplies, such as additional socks and gloves, a thermos for drinking water, fire-making materials, and a large chunk of moose fat, which is excellent for enhancing the body's ability to withstand the cold. After packing his gear, Joey set out, but there was one more thing he needed to do: bring along his close friend Bob. Together, they could look out for each other. Their destination was a hunting lodge, 64 kilometers from Tanana, and they needed to arrive before dark to provide fresh meat for their families. The weather in Alaska can change in an instant. They left on a sunny day, but soon a strong wind brought heavy snow, creating a whiteout and nearly blinding them. Despite the conditions, they couldn't stop. They had a long way to go. If they didn't reach the hunting lodge before dark, the cold weather could threaten their lives. The young men had to continue through the snowstorm. Just at this critical moment, Bob's snowmobile suddenly stopped and wouldn't start again. Although the situation was unexpected, they couldn't just wait for help. They had some mechanical knowledge passed down from their fathers. From the sound of the engine, it seemed like a fuel blockage, likely the carburetor. To fix it quickly, Bob risked frostbite by taking off his gloves. The temperature was already minus 42 degrees Celsius, and exposed skin could easily get frostbitten. But to reach the hunting lodge before dark, they couldn't worry about that. Bob's repair worked, and the engine started again. Ahead lay the steep climb up Mount Bard. Joey had to ask Bob if he was truly determined to continue this dangerous journey. Bob's answer was firm: to keep going. It seemed Bob had really grown up, no longer hesitating in the face of challenges. After entering the mountain area, the light began to fade. Someone had told them how to reach the hunting lodge, but no one had ever taken this route in winter. Unexpectedly, they encountered a fork in the road and didn't know which path led to the lodge. They had to blindly choose one to try. However, they quickly found themselves back at the fork. Now they faced two options: rush home before dark or try the other path. Being young and bold, they chose the latter. As the sun set, the temperature dropped sharply and the wind picked up. But their efforts paid off. They found the hunting lodge. There's an unwritten rule in the wilderness. If you receive help in a lodge, you must prepare firewood for the next person who seeks refuge before you leave. So, Joey and Bob quickly lit the stove. As warmth spread throughout their bodies, it felt truly wonderful.